Okay, welcome to Pod 2 this morning. We have Chad Zamarin and Todd Jordan from Natural Allies for a Clean Energy Future, methane mitigation, how industry innovation is spearheading new climate solutions. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I'm Tom Jordan with Coterra Energy. Coterra is a producer of natural gas both in the Permian Basin, the Anadarko Basin, and the Marcellus Shale. And you know, it's really been gratifying to be here and see the conversation is evolving around natural gas. I think that people are becoming clearly aware that natural gas is an important part of the global and national energy solution, and that without the abundance of natural gas that we can supply, we certainly won't meet our power demands, and that's obviously been a real hot topic here and ongoing. Natural gas also is part of our emissions story as a nation and the global climate solution. Natural gas certainly has a tremendous amount to offer. And then finally, energy security. Natural gas is domestic, it's abundant, and it provides America not only with the opportunity to have energy security, but also backstop our allies around the world. So the natural gas story is just particularly exciting, and it's a technology story, and I'm really delighted to be here with Chad.
Thanks, Tom. I'm Chad Zamarin, and I'll start by saying, Tom, you are by far my favorite customer, at least here in the pod. I think maybe the only one, but no, Coterra is an incredibly important customer of ours, and I think a great example of how important it is to have energy security and ingenuity here in the United States. So companies like Tom's obviously provide an incredible resource for us here at home and increasingly around the world. There's a slide up here that shows, I think, the real importance of natural gas. I've got a 15-year-old son, and he now gets the question, the right answer to the question, but I've asked him many times, what has been the single most important contributor to reducing emissions in the United States over the last 15 years? The only country on the planet that has actually met its Paris goals has been the United States. And the most important, impactful contributor to reducing emissions in the United States has not been Tesla, it's not been wind or solar, it's been natural gas. So the ability for natural gas to be a very powerful decarbonization tool is not a theory, it is a fact. And we're focused on making sure that we can grow the use of natural gas here at home. Over the last 15 years, that was primarily driven by natural gas displacing coal power generation in the United States. But the fact of the matter is we still have over 200 coal plants operating here in the US. And emissions know no borders. Globally, even though we've made great progress in the United States, this year we will burn more coal as a planet than in any year in the history of the planet. So what we've done here in the United States, what we've proven that we can do with great companies unlocking this resource in a responsible way and us driving down emissions in sectors that have very high emissions fuels is certainly an opportunity that we need to take advantage of. We'll talk a little bit about methane emissions and what we're doing to address that, but I just want to show that statistic and keep that in mind. And then finally, as Tom mentioned, the trifecta that we're trying to solve as a world, really one of the greatest challenges of our generation will be how to create more energy, but do it in an increasingly cleaner way. How do we provide affordable, reliable, and clean energy? Those are the three elements of any energy solution for the future, and you'll hear from us that natural gas is going to play an important role. So thanks.
One of our big challenges, as you all know, is providing our product free of emissions. And that is a huge challenge, and I'm sure we'll go into that in some detail. I think many people underestimate the challenge, but I'll say this, regardless, there's no excuse. Our industry needs to be transparent, needs to be fulsome in how we address the issue, and needs to be able to demonstrate it objectively. At Coterra, we got started a number of years ago, and we issued a challenge to our organization to reduce our emissions, whether or not it reduces our emission reporting. And that was a little different spin because we report, by and large, through a series of formulas provided to us by the EPA and our regulators, and they are not perfect. In fact, over time, they've been very imperfect. They're getting better, but they're not yet where they need to be. So our mission at Coterra has been to reduce our emissions whether or not it reduces our reporting. You know, I had an investor one time when I said that, he said, well, why would you do that? Why would you spend money reducing emissions if it doesn't reduce your reporting? And you know, I have a simple answer. It's about operational excellence. Delivering our products cleanly, we don't think about it any differently than we do safety. We want every person on a Coterra location to go home alive and well at the end of the day. Every person, contractor or employee. And we have that exact same mindset in emissions. And I have been deeply proud of our organization from the field to the C-suite in that everybody's embraced that challenge, particularly our field people. They don't want to build emissions that leak. They just don't. And they've been an inspiration to us in that. We're a company full of scientists. Our sustainability group is populated by engineers and scientists. Our sustainability report is a technical document describing the challenges, the progress, but also the failings. And if we don't adopt that level of transparency, we will not be able to provide the energy that the world so desperately needs. So that's our story. So.
Thanks. And at Williams, you know, I think what's really, really incredible about the natural gas value chain, and hopefully people recognize how important it is to extend to other sources. You know, in natural gas, we produce at Williams, we gather in 12 different supply basins. And in the United States, we have a very unique model. You know, we're able to produce energy far from where it's consumed. We can move it over vast distances without losing any of it. We can store vast quantities. We store over 3 trillion cubic feet of natural gas underground a year as a country, and then we can deliver it when and where it's needed. That's the equation that we're constantly trying to solve in energy markets, and it's a really complex equation to solve. If you think about, you know, oftentimes we've got, the sun isn't shining where people live. We've got, you know, a great property in Wyoming, over 1 million acres in Wyoming with a great wind resource. There are only 600 people living in the town of Wamsutter, Wyoming. You know, that's not where the energy is needed. So how do we produce energy far from where it's consumed and needed? How do we move it long distances and deliver it when and where it's needed? That's what we're focused on the midstream side. We collect gas from customers like Coterra, and we're very focused on making sure that we can focus on the benefits of using natural gas. So we need to tackle methane emissions. We need to take that head on. And if you think about that opportunity, you know, we started the natural gas exploration and production almost 200 years ago. We actually designed our systems. We didn't know at that time that methane was a problem. We didn't know that it was a greenhouse gas. And so we actually designed our systems to intentionally emit methane when we operate our systems. So when we talk about methane emissions from the natural gas value chain, we're not talking about something that we don't understand. We're not talking about something that we can't find, some mysterious leak somewhere in the system. We actually have equipment that was designed to emit methane when it operates. We actually evacuate our pipelines to perform maintenance by venting methane intentionally to the atmosphere. If we have an upset condition, we have systems that intentionally protect our systems by venting methane to atmosphere. These are sources that we understand and we can address in taking out. The challenge we've got is we've got to make sure we do that across a vast, complex network. You know, it's like a multi-lane highway. We're moving energy from places far across the country through complex systems and delivering them. And so, you know, I just saw there's a booth just behind me, Context Labs, a company that we're investing in and partnering with. Companies like Setlantis and Orbital Sidekick. You know, I try to, you know, be cool in the natural gas space for my 15-year-old. We've actually gotten into the satellite business. You know, in this space, you know, these are the companies that built this energy economy. These need to be the companies that take it to the energy solutions of the future. And so, you know, monitoring methane, companies like Longpath using lasers. I can't help it. I'm an Austin Powers fan, you know, lasers, using technology to identify methane emissions and drive those down. And so hopefully, you know, if you take anything away from this, understand that this is an industry that has built one of the most powerful economic security and affordability resources that we have as a country. We are now the #1 producer of oil and gas. We're not in the top 10 in lithium, cobalt, nickel, solar panels, wind turbines. We need those resources. We need to grow those as a country. We can't grow those without having a robust partner in natural gas here in the United States, and we need to increasingly provide the solutions that we have here at home to our friends and partners around the world. So that's what we're focused on doing here at Williams from a methane management, natural gas perspective. And I think with that, Tom and I, we're going to open it up for Q&A.
Any questions? Raise your hand, please.
Chad, would you talk a little bit about the role of natural gas and renewables, wind and solar, and also nuclear, and how that should potentially work together
Sure.
to create an energy system that meets our climate goals and our energy security?
Sure, I'll start and I'll let Tom add in. And first, I do want to recognize this is our former senator from Louisiana, Mary Landrieu, one of the great leaders I think that we have in the country. Thank you for being here, and thank you for being a voice of solutions in an unfortunately oftentimes too political environment. We're really focused on bringing solutions that can have a difference and matter. And Senator Landrieu asked a really important question, and it is, how do we partner the need for increasing wind, solar, and resources alongside natural gas? The reality is that Texas is a great example. At any given time in Texas, we're producing energy. And again, you ask your kids where we do the most with renewable energy, and they might tell you it sounds like we do the most on the coasts, in places that are far away from where we are today. Texas is by far the largest wind power generator in the United States. Oklahoma, where we're headquartered, one of the largest renewable power markets in the United States. The way that works is at any given time, the wind is blowing, it's changing. As the sun rises, we add some solar. As the sun sets, the only reason why the lights don't flicker and why that works is because we've got natural gas as the balancing tool that provides reliability to the energy markets. And it's the only solution that we have at scale. You'll hear a lot of great ideas. We need to be investing in new technologies. But at the end of the day, if we want to accelerate wind, solar, and other intermittent resources, you can only do it by having a partner in natural gas. And I think we see people waking up and realizing that reality. It is not a either or. This has got to be a partnership between solutions in how we bring big new systems to bear. And so without that partnership between renewables and natural gas, the solutions just don't work.
I would add to that, I think any objective look at either the national or global energy landscape leads to the inescapable conclusion that we can't do it without natural gas. Without natural gas, either home or abroad, we'll have brownouts, we'll have blackouts, we'll have a lessening of economic development and deindustrialization. So natural gas has to be a part of the mix. There's no well thought out solution that can conclude otherwise. So as an industry, we have a fundamental responsibility, quite frankly, to solve our methane problem. Chad is absolutely right. We're dealing with facilities that were designed to release methane whenever they have an interruption. And I tell our organization that if we had discovered natural gas for the first time today, we would never tolerate that as a new design. So let's fix it. It's a tough technical challenge. Love to entertain a discussion on the challenges of that, but none of that is an excuse. As an industry, we must solve our methane problem, and I am incredibly optimistic. I've never seen a period of human history where a bet on innovation was the wrong bet. And our industry has made tremendous progress, and you see that in the halls here. And but we must dedicate ourselves to it. We must be relentless. We must have an extremely high standard, and we must be completely transparent. I also tell our organization that our fans make us feel good, our critics make us better. And quite frankly, because of a lot of the requirements upon us with methane mitigation, we've become better, and we welcome that.
Tom? I just concur with what you both said, right? Every BTU exported is a BTU of coal, dirty coal in the East, not burned, right? So I applaud you both for championing the message. A two-part question for you, Tom. One is, where do you see the biggest opportunities to further reduce methane, both in your operations but also in the pipelines? That's question one. And then, even though you say, and I agree, it's the right thing to do and operationally it drives great excellence, are you starting to see customers demand a certain level of, cleanliness in the gas, or even entertain a premium?
Yeah, well, the challenges are broad, and we have a lot to do there. We certainly, in terms of future advancements, detection technology is getting better and better. It's not perfect, and the problem is there are variable environmental conditions, and a technology that works in one environment will not necessarily work in another. The real challenge is quantification. We're fairly well along the way on detection. We're still having a difficult time in quantification. And there's a lot of emerging technologies. We're deeply curious about it, but it's a real problem. Adequately measuring so we can absolutely say we have firm confidence in our numbers. And I think certainly it's great to partner with a company like Williams that's looking at the entire value chain from the upstream producer down to the ultimate consumer, because that's really what we need to be talking about. Isolating upstream, midstream, or any element of the value chain is logically inconsistent. As far as customers, we're not really seeing a tremendous economic uplift from being a clean producer yet. We expect that's going to happen. We think that'll be particularly important to the LNG market, and we've certainly seen some of that with LNG cargoes being accepted or rejected based on the carbon footprint. So, we just don't see a downside to doing everything we can to absolutely eliminate and reduce emissions in our value chain, and whether there's a economic benefit or not, we just don't have a choice. We need to do it, and we need to do it as expeditiously and cost effectively as we can.
And why I'm excited about this aspect of our business is, again, this is something that we can do. If you think about the largest source of emissions still on the pipeline side of the value chain, it's intentional releases of methane to perform maintenance activities. Intentional releases and evacuations of our pipelines so that we can maintain them. That's the model of how maintenance was created for over a century in the pipeline industry. We're changing that, and we need to retrofit the equipment. We need recompression equipment so that we can take the methane that we would have vented to atmosphere. We don't want to lose that gas. That's energy. That's value that we all could benefit from. But historically, we just vented it to atmosphere to do our maintenance. So we're working on technologies to recompress the gas back into the pipeline system. We need to work on additional technologies to not have to take a pipeline out of service in order to perform maintenance. One of the interesting things is we've added technology to our system that we find is, there's a lot of kind of factor-based estimating of emissions across value chains. We actually find that as we add more continuous monitoring, more technology, that we're actually seeing that most of the emissions that aren't the intentional type emissions are from upset conditions that oftentimes don't get well captured by using more broad-based estimates. So to Tom's point, we need to be very precise, very transparent about where our emissions are occurring so that we can target those. Take the low-hanging fruit is changing the operational practices, redesigning the equipment. It takes some time, but if you think about investments in driving down emissions, the things that we're working on and all the different opportunities out there, that is the lowest cost per CO2 equivalent that we can achieve anywhere. Let's decarbonize the existing energy systems. They're massive. That's where the low-hanging fruit is. We're not going to, the solution is not to end those industries and create new industries. It's decarbonize the existing energy ecosystem. We can't afford the alternative. We've got to leverage, what we've got today. And as we show here, and Tom mentioned it on the premium and the price issue. Natural gas today is 4 times cheaper than electricity here in the United States. In most parts of the world, it's even more. There's even greater parity between the cost of natural gas and other energy sources. We've got room within the value of our value chain to invest. I think of it like when we added catalytic converters to cars. It might have meant that the product cost a little bit more, but we've got so much room to be a competitive, important, frankly, low-cost natural gas. What companies like Tom's have done to unlock low-cost natural reserves has been what's allowed us to invest in more expensive technologies. If you think about the percentage of your utility bill and the energy that gets delivered to your home, natural gas is a small part of your cost relative to the amount of energy that it delivers in the United States. That allows us to invest in other technologies while we move energy into the future. So, it's important that we focus on this issue so that we can focus on the benefits of what natural gas can drive when we use it as an energy source.
Hi, hello. I wanted to ask about the EPA's methane rule that was first finalized in December and published, I think, earlier this month. How will that impact your business in terms of sort of retrofitting, like you said, this 200-year-old equipment or practices, and how it will affect smaller producers, and will they be able to sort of meet the new standards that have been put forward?
Yeah, I'll talk about Coterra, and then I'll talk about the industry writ large. Coterra, we are supportive of almost all of the new EPA requirements. We've done a lot of work internally. We think the new emissions factors actually do a better job of modeling actual emissions than the ones that they're replacing. So broadly, I'd say we're very supportive. I will actually throw a shout out to the EPA in that they did engage with a number of companies, including Coterra, and they made some modifications to make the rules, if not perfect, better. The super emitter program, which if those of you are not familiar with it, it allows third parties to monitor our system and then report the emissions, and we're asked to react to that. We're a little concerned about how that will play out in practice because it deputizes the monitoring to third parties that are themselves unregulated. The second part of your question, though, about the small producer, the new regulations also took away the grandfathering in of older producing wells. And we have a whole part of our industry that are very low producing wells, mom-pa shops, if you will, wells that are making 1 or 2 barrels a day. And I'm deeply concerned about the impact there because many of those will not support the kind of retrofitting that companies like Williams and Coterra can handle. Financially, those wells will just need to be plugged if there's no give and take in those emissions. And that impacts a whole sector, not only of our industry, but of American life. And so I'm hopeful that when that issue comes to the fore, there'll be some at least receptive ears to how we can modify that. That won't impact Coterra, it won't impact Williams, but it's going to impact a lot of people for whom their way of life is going to be threatened. So thank you for that question.
Yeah, and on the midstream side, first we are retrofitting our equipment. We've got at Williams what we call our emissions reduction program. We're taking old compressors, replacing those with electric motor drives, modern turbine equipment. We're replacing equipment that, again, was designed to intentionally generate emissions and upgrading that technology. What it's going to drive for the industry is a real need, and I think you see many of those technology developers, but it is important to recognize this is early days. Like, we have to have smart policy that doesn't set standards for what our capabilities are today and allows for development to occur and evolve over time. We're having this discussion on EPA rules and other regulatory constructs where we've got to allow, you think about satellite technology, it will sound like we can float a satellite up and it's ready to monitor 100% of our footprint every day, all day long with precision. We're not there. The reality is we need to get there. We're one of the we move 1/3 of the nation's natural gas, one of the largest infrastructure companies in the country. We've just launched our first 2 satellites that we're investing in, and we're just now, and that was 6 months ago, we're just now getting some of our initial data and calibration back. So we're learning a lot, and we're going to figure it out, and the industry is going to evolve, and it's evolving rapidly. We're not talking about, taking generations, but we've got to make sure we've got the ability to install technology that can measure direct point technology that can measure through aerial surveillance, and technology that can measure through satellite monitoring. And it's an important point that Tom mentioned. I'll give you an example with actual numbers. We've got about 400,000 miles of gathering pipeline in the United States. The large diameter gathering pipeline, there's about 90,000 miles in the United States. That's comprised of over 500 different operators, 30 of which constitute 75% of the mileage. There are hundreds of small operators, less than 10 miles, some of them. You know, again, our energy system was built over generations. Small companies, small landowners have small systems that a rising tide will lift all ships, but we also have to make sure it's kind of the Pareto, concept. We're going after the biggest opportunities first, and we're allowing time for technology innovation to bring along, the rest of the industry. And so that I do think we're seeing a recognition of that reality, but that's going to be the challenge that we all need to solve going forward.
I think we have time for one more question.
No one from this side of the audience?
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. If anyone has any further questions, please come up afterwards and speak to the guys. Thank you.